And welcome into a special edition of the Gabe Swartz Show. It is KC Sports Night here at KC5. I'm Jared Koller. That is Gabe Swartz. And while the Chiefs season has come to an end in heartbreaking fashion in the Super Bowl, while one season ends, another begins, and that is your Kansas City Royals baseball team. They are in Surprise, Arizona, getting ready for the 2025 season. So tonight we're going to break it down, everything you need to know, our expectations, what we make of the pitching staff, the lineup, some topics maybe people aren't talking about, and overall our thoughts to get you ready for baseball season because, Gabe, it is here. Baseball season is a long season and it is about to begin, but this is the most anticipated Royals season since 2017, in my opinion. And let's start there. What do you think of the momentum heading into this campaign?
I was thinking back to 2017 and thinking, I think that there's probably more anticipation now than there was probably then because
that was the last year for Eric Osborne, Mike Moustakas, Lorenzo Cain, that core that won a pennant.
I just don't know if there was as much hype, and maybe that is me being overly focused on the contributions and stardom of Bobby Witt Jr. and the top-end pitching staff strength that the Royals have with Cole Ragans. And I don't know if and we can get into it, I don't know if we're going to expect the same level of production as Seth Lugo produced, but with him being back, it would be very hard to. But if with Lugo back and with Waka back, and it doesn't necessarily feel like the end of a run, whereas it feels like last year was the start of, I mean, who knows how long of a run things can go because baseball windows and smaller markets are different, but it feels like last year was the start of like a 3 to 4 year window of this group. And so I think that there's plenty of excitement because for as much as, and I think that we've discussed off camera, the optimism that I have for Bobby Witt Jr. and that it could be if he's around the ballpark of where he was last year or the year prior, where I know that no one aside from I believe Barry Bonds has ever gone 30-30 in 3 consecutive seasons. So that would be certainly unprecedented territory, but I think that the power increase for Bobby is one of those things where I don't necessarily think he hit for power great last year. He hit the ball hard plenty, and he hit the ball to the gaps plenty. But we'll see. So as far as expectations or optimism, I think it's sky high. I think it's as high as it's been since probably the year after they won the title, so 2016.
Yeah, and I think you hit on Bobby Witt Jr. there, and I think that is part of the reason for the momentum entering this season because he's coming off a runner-up finish in MVP voting in the American League, the highest place finish since the 80s. So I think that's one of the differences from 2016, 2017. That 17 window, or that 17 season, I think it is comparable just because at that time they were only a year and a half removed from winning the World Series, going to back-to-back pennants, and everyone, with the exception of Wade Davis, was coming back. They signed Joakim Soria. They brought in Jorge Soler. That team still was a winning team. They just didn't finish strong down the stretch. But I think there was still a lot of excitement around that team. But you're right, Gabe, in that I think the 2025 Royals can be and probably should be better than the 2017 Royals. So I think that's where, if you want to say there's more excitement, than since 2016 when they were looking to defend their crown. Yeah. Either way, exciting times because of Bobby Witt Jr. But also I think Cole Ragans, someone who finished in the top 4 in Cy Young voting, regardless of what Seth Lugo can do. I think there's a lot of optimism that Ragans can't replicate that. So with that as kind of the foundation, before we break into this, break down kind of the pieces, when you add it all up, are we expecting another playoff team? Are we expecting a team that can win the division, a 500 team, knowing that things can change, obviously, but what are your overall expectations?
I think that they can win the division. I don't know if it's my expectation for them, but I think that it is a more realistic expectation than last year when it felt like a pipe dream coming out of the gates. Whereas I think that this year, given the way the rest of the division sets up, I think that they will be. I think it's truly a toss-up between several teams, and that
there's four good teams and one bad team.
There's four good teams, and I don't know if I truly think that the separating factor will be a lot like last year. In like, can you have a absolutely dominant unit? And that's kind of what was the case for Kansas City with a great starting pitching staff, an elite starting pitching staff last year, and the Guardians with an elite bullpen. Now, because of the rest of the roster and because of the rest of the balance, I would say like Cleveland had Jose Ramirez, Kansas City had Bobby Witt Jr. With those, it was truly just a matter of what poor part of your roster is holding you back a little bit. And I think that the Royals have correctly identified and fixed one of their main issues, or their two main issues, which was the bullpen, which is better this year, or at least shapes up to be much better, and has a better plan of attack than last year, just from a process standpoint. And then the super bugaboo that we saw of the last 2 months for Kansas City last year, which was the leadoff position, and that they pretty much never got guys on in front of Bobby Witt Jr., which severely hampered his production. So I really like the Jonathan India addition. I know that you really like the Carlos Estevez addition, and I'm extremely high on what the Royals bullpen returners showed from last year, whether it was Sam Long, Angel Zerpa, Lucas Ursig. In September,
they were perfect.
Yeah.
And really in the postseason in Baltimore, they were perfect. In New York, they weren't perfect, but they held their own as much as they could, I thought.
Yeah. So I think that the Royals are in that toss-up range. I think that it's between them and probably, I think a little bit more Detroit than Cleveland to me.
Yeah, and Minnesota won't lie over like the White Sox. I think they're the fourth team out of that. But Gabe, I think you start with the division, and that's who you see the most. But for me, I don't look at it as a big difference between division and wild card, in that my expectation and my prediction is wild card. Just make the playoffs. If they can win the division, and they should, that's great. That should be the goal. But I think we've seen that if you can get in, anything can happen. The Royals were the lower seed to the Orioles. That didn't matter. Yes, do they play better at the K? Do I want those home playoff games? Yes. But the Royals' one playoff win in the divisional round was at Yankee Stadium. So the road disadvantage is not great. And so that's where, for me, you'll be chasing those standings. But my expectation is this team, if they can stay healthy, which obviously we'll get into, but if all the pieces are there, I expect them to make the playoffs, and I'll be a little bit disappointed if they don't, just because more teams make the playoffs now, and I think the pieces are in place. And to your point about it being the start of a 3, 4, 5 year window, I don't know if that's true, because Bobby Witt Jr. is his window's the next 10 years, but a guy like Salvador Perez, who's a force in your lineup, how many good years does he have? Cole Reagans is a pitcher who might get hurt. Pitchers get hurt. And then you have Seth Lugo and Michael Wacha, who are two veteran pitchers who I think will be good. But are they going to be good for another couple of years? Vinny Pasquantino has been hurt. I don't think it's as much of a guarantee, whereas and I think it was unique in that 2013 to 2017 window where it was very clear everyone was on the same page. I don't think this group is like that. I think there's a core that can absolutely Michael Massey, Vinny Pasquantino, Jonathan India, MJ Melendez for the next 2 years maybe. But I want the Royals, and think they should, and expect that they will, really take advantage of at least this year, because you don't know how close you're going to be after it. Things can turn quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think that there's obviously no way to prove this, and I would generally push back on this, because this line of thinking is one of those things that I push back on when it comes to other teams and their arguments against the Chiefs of the woulda, coulda, shouldas. But I truly think that the sliding doors moment of Vinny Pasquantino messing up his thumb last year in Houston probably stops the Royals from winning the division, because they were playing such great baseball at the time that it happened, and
or
they
at least
had just
coming really close.
They had just whereas they kind of fell apart, and from that point on,
that is a great
the
point.
lineup was just had so much less
and that is
production, and we didn't see, because of that. I don't think that the process was much worse in terms of the way that he went about hitting or anything, but playoff Bobby Witt was not the same against the Yankees
and neither was
as he was in the regular season. Vinny was a shell of himself.
Excuse me.
And so I really think that as long as you have the addition of India providing more opportunities, and then you've got the health of Vinny Pasquantino's crucial, the health of Salvador Perez is crucial, because if you have the pieces around Bobby correctly, I think that will be big. I mean, the health of Michael Massey is big as well. And so if you were to ask me to be negative Nelly, I would say
no one's asking you to do
you
that.
have several people who there's a track record of poor health that you can't necessarily expect everything to go that way. And so
the combo of health and father time.
Yeah. So if the Royals underperform expectations or if they don't make the playoffs, I think that there's a decent reasoning or a decent belief of things that you could lead. You'd be like, well, that probably happened. But as far as ceiling, I love the ceiling of this team.
Agreed. I think there's a big gap. And, like, if you told me the team won 75 games, I go, yeah. If you told me the team won 97 games, I go, yeah.
97 would be incredible. That would be insane.
I mean, that doesn't equate to postseason success, but I think there's that world. Everything would have to go right, but listen, they improved by 30 wins last year. Like, I'm not expecting that again. Like, that's not my expectation, but I think that's when you talk about their ceiling.
Yeah.
That's what I think their ceiling is. Their ceiling isn't 89 wins, and then, it's
that's fair.
Mainly
because they could be a 90-win team.
Mainly because, as you said, that brings us to the KC lineup. This Royals offense was, I think, better than people realized last year, or they realize right now, because in September the offense wasn't good, and in the postseason the offense really wasn't good. But for the large chunk of the year, the offense was really good because they had a healthy Vinny Pasquantino in there, along with Bobby Witt Jr. and Salvador Perez, who had career years, and the rest of the offense did enough. I think now the offense is better today than it was last year because of Jonathan India. And so I think if they can stay healthy, that the lineup is improved. That's where if you go from a run scored perspective, the Royals had a really good offense last year until Vinny Pasquantino went down. And had he not gone down, I think there's a world where they get to like 95 wins, and so that's where when we talk about the ceiling, it's, okay, replicating that. And so a lot of that is with this lineup. So if you're unfamiliar, here's my projected lineup for Kansas City this year. Jonathan India starting at second base, Bobby Witt Jr. shortstop, first base Vinny Pasquantino, Salvador Perez is catcher, batting fifth is Michael Massey at DH, in right field Hunter Renfroe, in left field MJ Melendez, at third base Maikel Garcia batting eighth, and batting ninth in center field Kyle Isbell. The bench players not included on that, Freddie Fermin, Joey Weimer, the outfielder, Dyron Blanco, the outfielder, and Nick Lofton, the infielder and outfielder. That's my roster projection, with the caveat that someone like infielder Kevin Biggio, outfielders Nelson Velasquez, Drew Waters, Nick Prado could also get in.
No to the last two, please.
Yeah, I don't think that will happen, but they are on the 40-man roster.
And they could still sign
yeah, and I hope
someone.
that they do. I hope that they do. But with that lineup, let's say that is their opening day lineup, which the other thing is they could also trade for someone in July. So if they're like in the hunt in July, this isn't necessarily your October lineup, as we saw with Tommy Pham and Yuli Gurriel. So that can still happen. But with that starting nine, knowing that there can be a little positional differentiating, whether or not Massey's at second or India maybe in the outfield or Freddie Fermin at DH, what do you make of the KC Bats?
I am relatively optimistic about the addition of Jonathan India. I know that he will be hitting in a significantly different ballpark than he did in Cincinnati, which
I think helps him.
You do?
Yes, because his game is not as a power hitter. He's not going to hit as many home runs, but I think his doubles and triples are going to go up, and maybe even singles, because there's just more space for him to get the ball down.
Okay. So, yes, that's the thing is his home runs will almost certainly be lower than he hit in Cincinnati. But I do think that he will be, just from the fact that he profiles as someone who would walk more frequently,
and that's what you're not getting him for his home runs. You're getting him for his on base to get on base in front of Bobby Witt Jr.
Yes.
And I don't expect that to take a hit at the game.
Yes. So he profiles as someone who gets on base at a significantly higher clip than anyone who hit in the leadoff spot last year for the Royals. And just by that alone, you raised the floor of the Royals offense, because the floor was so low in the sense that for so many of the nights of the season, it felt like when the Royals went quiet, it was teams effectively pitched around Bobby.
Yep.
They effectively pitched around the middle of the lineup, and then they just attacked guys 5 through 9.
Or even 6 through 9, depending on what
depending on the night. So I like that part. I really think that when Michael Massey was healthy last year, he was super productive.
Yes.
And I think that him at the 5 spot is pretty solid.
There's a big difference between Indy and Massey making it 5 studs, and then if your last 4 don't do much, compared to only having 3 studs and having 6 weaklings.
Yeah, and I also think that
which they did last year.
They were able to have a productive season last year with the only production from MJ Melendez was some timely hitting, which was
homers.
Important, but it was not consistent at all.
No.
And then Hunter Renfroe had several
similar
week-long stretches where he was a productive player, but he also had week-long stretches where he was a walking out. So I think that the chances of either of them, if one of those two guys has a better season than last year.
Do you think that'll happen?
I do. I think. I don't know. I'm. Your guess
you're saying one of the two.
Your guess is as good as mine, but I will guess that one of those two is going to have a better season than
I don't know.
I just think that
I might take I think there's a chance they both could have worse seasons. I know.
That's not a thought that you know what? We said no. I guess you're going to be the negative Nelly.
You said for the people that want to be negative. No. I think I would take if MJ Melendez has another 20 home run season. What I kind of view it as is if they platoon, basically they combine to be one player, and if Massey or India can take left field, and then
maybe
they
play
Fermin getting more at bat, like
Michael Garcia could get some outfield chances.
Yeah. I don't think this team's success will live and die, though, with Garcia, Melendez, Renfroe. I think it comes down to those first 5 guys being studs. And that's why nobody's really worried about the outfield, which I think is understandably so. But if your 5 guys can carry you, and then your pitching staff, and then your defense, Kyle Isbell's good defensively, Michael Garcia is good defensively. I think if you're 5 guys, you're 5 guys. And then timely hits, okay, every other game can one of those 6 through 9 hitters have a big hit. Don't have to be great, but just be good enough. I also think Joey Weimer, we don't really know much about him, but he could come up and get a decent amount of at-bats and stake his claim to be in a rotation with Melendez and Renfroe. So that's where I actually don't have too high expectations for those guys.
I actually think, and this could be to our X factors at the K discussion for later. Maybe it's worth opening now in terms of the KC lineup, is you mentioned that in August or in October, the lineup later in the season doesn't necessarily have to look. That is exactly where I was going to go, because veteran college bats tend to move through the minors a lot quicker than others. And he, correct me if I'm wrong, he has a major league spring training invite, right?
Yes.
So he's going to be around.
Probably going to start in Double-A.
I truly think that if this team hits its ceiling, if this team hits if they're a 90-win team,
Caglione is part of it.
It's part of that reason is that he comes up in August and he adds 2 things. I'm not going to say he's raking or anything.
You'd want him to come up because that's how good he is, not because they need him that bad.
Yes,
that's
exactly.
If it's important.
Yes, because I just think of how quickly a guy like Chris Bryant, who was an absurdly good college hitter, and how quickly he rolled through the minor leagues for the Cubs. If Jack Caglione can kind of do that sort of thing, that's a ceiling raiser for this organization this year.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be great. For those that don't know, Caglione was just drafted this past year, but in his experience both in Arizona and in high A, he went right to high A, and he absolutely hits the ball 500 million miles an hour. Like, he profiles to be a crazy power hitter. Now, he's still got to refine that, but he's got pop, and his experience so far, he's had an incredible barrel rate.
Yeah.
So we will see. We'll also see if the pitching staff can come close to replicating what it did last year, and that's an interesting question because the rotation, I don't think can, but the bullpen was bad until September. I don't think people realize how many games the bullpen lost. And so I think while the rotation is going to take a little step back after trading Brady Singer, Seth Lugo, and Michael Walker getting older, I think the bullpen can pick up a lot of slack with a full year of Lucas Ursig, who's amazing since coming over. Really recently signed All-Star and Carlos Estevez, Angel Zerpa, Sam Long, John Schreiber, Carlos Hernandez, and then suddenly James McArthur is like your eighth guy in the bullpen if he's in it at all. And last year at times he was your closer. So I really like, and whoever you, assuming Michael Lorenzen is the 4, either Chris Bubic or Alec Marsh is the 5. I expect the loser of that will go to AAA. But Bubic did pitch well in the bullpen last year. Maybe they put him there. Either way, there's horses in the bullpen, Gabe, that I think will help make up for a rotation that really can't be as good as last year because it was just one of the best rotations ever.
Yeah, and last year the bullpen's issue was not getting enough swing and miss.
Correct.
And thus relying upon balls in play. You were just reliant upon getting a good batting average on balls or a poor batting average on balls in play for your opponent. And that's something that's somewhat out of your own control. It's aided by the fact that like Kyle Isbell is a great defender, Bobby Witt Jr. is a great defender, Michael Massey, when he's in there and he's healthy, he's a good second baseman. But with that being said, I like what the bullpen is now because you mentioned so many names, and then you were like, and John Schreiber and James McArthur, like those are guys who could get work in like the 6th inning this year. Like Sam Long could be a 6th inning guy. He was a 6th inning guy at times in the playoffs. And I
didn't mention Daniel Lynch, who
was much really better at the end of the year. Yeah, so I just think that it's a lengthier bullpen, and it doesn't feel like if the starting pitcher doesn't have it and you go to the bullpen in the 5th inning. Last year, going to the bullpen in the 5th inning was like, you're probably handing the ball to like Nick Anderson or Will Smith, and
Will Smith was getting leverage
at times.
For so
but
much
then he became like a middle innings guy.
They figured it out. But it cost him a lot of games, and that's where I think if they can hit the ground running, that's a huge difference maker because they were really held down by their bullpen for a long time. And similar though, Gabe, last year we were high on the bullpen to a degree. Well, I was. The guys just didn't pan out. Like on paper, they signed Chris Stratton, Will Smith, Nick Anderson, who all had pedigree. They traded for John Schreiber. We're like, oh, look at just didn't pan out. This year, I think there's a little bit more reliability because we've seen him perform in a Royals uniform. So that's where I'm more confident. But with the caveat that relievers come and go, and they get good, then they get bad.
And the caveat that with there being so many options that appear to be solid, the worst case outcome of this bullpen is that Matt Quatrero is just pushing what people believe to be the wrong buttons at the wrong times, and whether or that they just take a certain amount of time to figure out what the actual role should be.
I don't think this will be one of the best bullpens in baseball. Like, I don't think this will be the 2014 Royals. So, Royals fans, get ready. This bullpen's going to blow games because guess what? Everybody single bullpen does. So, I just expect a large improvement from last year, not like, this team's strength is now the bullpen. I don't think they have the arms for that because I think they only have 2 high-leverage, bona fide studs in Lucas Ursig and Carlos Estevez. Everyone outside of that is really like a 6th or 7th inning guy, which is valuable. But there are other teams, a lot of teams have 8th and 9th inning guys. Look at the Guardians, for example. Like their bullpen is a strength. So I'm just saying I think that can increase the overall win total just by not being awful. And I think they're also going to, in order to hit their ceiling, Gabe, I think they need to help pick up the slack from the rotation.
Yeah.
Sorry about your guy Alec Marsh, though. He doesn't have a fifth spot in the rotation handed to him. He's got to compete with Chris Bubich, it sounds like. I would look for Michael Lorenzen, sneaky candidate to not be in the rotation that long. I think there's a world in which Bubich and Marsh both pitch really well. I think they have higher ceilings than Lorenzen, and I think he could lose that job as the season goes on. But I think in spring, he's the number 4.
Yeah, I just like that there's good evidence of multiple guys giving you productive starts from the bottom of your rotation. Yeah. So that's good to know.
They'll need that because this is my big X factor at the K that ties in with the pitching staff, the health. What's the biggest reason the Royals were good last year? Bobby Witt Jr. What's the second biggest reason? The starting pitching.
The third biggest is that the starting pitching was healthy.
Is healthy, right.
Yeah.
Why was the rotation really good? Because they were really healthy.
Yeah.
No arm injuries in the rotation. Like Waka was a foot and Marsh was
a groin.
Yeah.
No.
He got hit.
Other way around.
Yeah. Either way, it was neither of them.
Oh, no. Waka was foot. Marsh got hit on this forearm.
Got hit,
and Lorenzen hurt his groin.
Lorenzen was covering first base.
Yes.
Yeah. But they lose Brady Singer, who was never hurt and really good.
Feasted on the White Sox.
Well, right. Singer had a great year, and he had a great year 2 years ago. But even when he's been bad in his career, he's always been out there. Cole Reagans, that was the most he's ever pitched. Same with Seth Lugo. I don't think you can pencil in that same inning total from the rotation. And so that's where I think the Lorenzen signing is really big to push your number to 6 starters with a caveat of potentially 7 with Kyle Wright. You don't know what's expected of him, but he is there. Because when either Reagans or Lugo or Walker goes down, they're going to need Alec Marsh to make a handful of starts. Like, I think Alec Marsh is going to end up with like 15 starts this year. I know you were talking more like 6 or 7.
We'll see.
I'd
love him to get 15
because
starts.
Even if he's the 6th guy, I just don't think health will come. And same goes with the lineup. They need their 3 big horses, and this year hopefully 5 big horses stay healthy. Because we saw last year when they lose someone, there's no margin for error. And so for me, every game is watching if they win or lose, but also are they healthy that day? That is just as important to me.
I think that you have the hesitancy on whether Cole Reagans can match the level of workload that he had last year, or just that it's cautious optimism because he's really good when he's out there. My biggest cautious optimism toward the Royals pitching staff, or my biggest question mark as far as the Royals pitching staff goes, is how replicatable is what Seth Lugo did last year, because he was so good at pitching to contact. Now, the believer in me would say, well, he can vary things up so much, and he really spoke extensively about how he's got so many different options and he can throw 7, 8, 9 different pitches and he can keep guys off balance because he's not, when he goes through the lineup 2-3 times, he's working through guys in different ways. The pessimist in me would say there's not a lot of evidence of a lot of starting pitchers who just figure everything out in their mid-30s and just do it year after year. But he's such a different case. But that's why he's such a different case, because he didn't have years and years of failed starting pitching experience. So I'm just both sidesing it there. But that's the one thing that I think will be very bit of a significant impact on whether the Royals pitching staff is in the same ballpark as last year.
I think a lot of people agree with you and think Lugo will take a regression, but I think people are too harsh on Lugo. Because is he going to regress? Yes, because he finished second in Cy Young voting.
Of course. That's the thing is, of course he's going to.
But I don't think that's because he's going to be hardly any worse than it, just because some of the balls are going to drop, but I think with his stuff, as long as he still has his plethora of pitches, and there's no reason to think that his stuff is going to drop off. I don't think that suddenly now, because, I think if hitters would have figured him out, they would have figured him out at some point last year, and they never did, including in the playoffs. He was solid in the playoffs. Maybe not as good as he was in the regular season. Cole Reagans is definitely the number 1, in my opinion. But I think Lugo is going to be better than people think, because I think people are thinking he's just going to fall off a cliff.
But even if he regresses, bringing Walker back is so critical
Yes.
because he has such a
And
track
Waka
record
was
of being
just as
solid
good as
in
Lugo
the
since May, I believe. Like,
Yeah.
Waka's first month wasn't great, and then
and then he was really,
every
really
game
good.
he was 6 innings, 2 runs. He maybe didn't have the complete game or a shutout like Lugo did, so his ceiling maybe wasn't as high. But, like, dude, his floor was crazy.
Yep.
Which they need 3 starters, especially now without Brady Singer. That 4th and 5th spot is not as reliable.
Yep.
So, in closing, Gabe, anything we haven't touched on any X Factor that you're like, hey, this is something people need to watch for when they head out to the K this year?
I think that in terms of being like this is really niche stuff, but in terms of being successful late game situational baseball, I think the health of Dairon Blanco is pretty important as a pinch runner. Having him all season long, I don't know what the backup plan would be in terms of producing runs via speed off of the bench. If he were to go down, I'm not like absolutely locked in on what the roster looks like in Omaha all the time.
Drew Waters would be the
But I just think that Blanco is really critical in that regard, and he doesn't necessarily have to hit incredibly well. He just has to hit at a average enough pace.
I don't know if he has to hit it all.
He just has to hit enough that he can start like once a week. And
Dairon Blanco has to show that he can play defense in order. I don't care about his bat hitting. He's an absolute liability in the outfield. That's the problem.
So,
like in that big series in Cleveland, he was clueless.
Yeah,
and I say that as someone who, when playing slow pitch softball at times, looks very clueless. I know clueless, Gabe. No, I agree. But along those lines, I think an X factor is Joey Weimer or Weimer. I don't know how to say it, but like he was a top 100 prospect for the Brewers. Like there's a world in which he kind of puts it together and is a guy who starts 3 or 4 times a week and does something.
The Brewers typically figure things out with their top prospects.
And the Royals didn't have to, like, he was kind of a throw-in. So I'm not predicting it, but I think he might be a little bit more of a contributor than people realize.
Yeah.
Same with, I think, Michael Garcia. He's younger than Bobby Witt Jr. I think there's a chance he turns it on even more. However, he has a lot of experience at this point. I think kind of what we've seen is what we're going to get. But he was really good in the playoffs. So I hope people don't just completely write him off either. Same goes with MJ Melendez. I think there's a world in which he takes a big step forward. I don't think that that's going to happen, but that there's a possibility. And so, Gabe, when we talk about the ceiling, I think it's nice that they're not counting on all of these things. Like, I think they can still make the playoffs even if Weimer and Garcia and Melendez aren't any better than what they have been.
That's my biggest and main takeaway is that my overwhelming belief in this team being a playoff team is based on the fact that there's just various routes to them being good, and it's not Bobby against the world anymore.
Yep, we shall see. It should be a fun summer out to the K. Attendance was not very good last year, so hopefully Royals fans, now that they know this team is legit, they won a postseason series, hopefully they get out to the K. Salvador Perez only not going to be here forever. Bobby Witt Jr. going to be here a long time, but not forever. So go out, support the boys in blue, and then watch them here on KCTV5 6 times this year. So, company man, J. Cole. There we go. All right, Gabe Swartz, it's been real. That is KC Sports Tonight. That is the Gabe Swartz Show. James Shields, salute. And it's the 10-year anniversary of the 2015 World Series team. How about that? Let's go win a World Series, Gabe.